Hey guys, I'm down here. This is gonna be my chapter reviews to both Nanatsu no Taizai 344 and 345. So that's the seven deadly sins. It's called through to the future, sorry, and then the 345th chapter is called Heirs. The reason why these are late is because I haven't really been looking forward to them, as weird as it sounds, and I read through them and they were pretty much what I was expecting. Wrap up chapters. Not all that great, to be honest. Is very kind of cheesy. Nothing really all that hype. The second chapter was actually pretty decent-ish towards the end because we got two names which we've kind of been expecting for a while now in terms of Arthur's story. But let's get through these chapters and talk about what happens. So the first chapter, 344, we start off with all the sins together in like this central square in Lyonesse somewhere, where they're all talking about what they're going to be doing, where they're going. So King and Diane, they're saying, yeah, we're going to go, get married. Hopefully you guys will come and watch us get married. Cool. Whereas Barnes is like, all right, cool, I'm going to go with Elaine. We're going to take it easy, go traveling. But apparently they're going to go ale tasting all over Britannia, which is cool. Garth is like, all right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to travel. I'm going to go out on a journey and find out what my present work will be. So he's basically just going to go and find new work, find new meaning, I think. And then we get that very fairy tale-ish moment of him saying, but I won't be alone. I could never be lonely. You told me so yourselves. If you are ever in trouble, we are there for you. All of us, the seven deadly sins. I'm like, alright, cool, we get it. You're friends. And then Meliodas went, yeah, we'll always be friends. And I was like, cool, okay, double underlined there. Cool. Thanks for letting me know more than the once. Anyway, we get past that. Very cheesy. I was like, okay, cool. Leaving just Meliodas, Elizabeth, and Hawk. Is it Hawk? Yeah, it is Hawk. I'm thinking of My Hero Academia now, and I was like, Hawks? Really? Is he in this manga? But yeah. So apparently it's been about a year. Meliodas says it's been only a year since then. I'm just like, since when? Since the defeat of the Demon King? Has it been a year since then? Have you guys just been chilling for a year? But anyway, they decide that they're gonna go back to the castle. But Hawk is just like, I'm gonna go back to Purgatory to go erect a grave for my brother. And while Elizabeth is just like, you're such a kind soul, he literally just like, all right, safe, and he runs off. He literally just like mid conversation, he's like, all right, peace out, and he runs away. And I'm just like, you're gonna go to how are you gonna get to Purgatory? And then Meliodas is like, how exactly is he gonna get to Purgatory? Then you see in the distance Hawk just skidding across the floor saying, wait a sec, how am I going to get to Purgatory? So there was like this triple moment of how is he going to get to Purgatory from me, moving on to Meliodas, moving on to Hawk. And I was like, wow, this has become so self-aware. This must have been like a joke that I think Horikoshi was making. I mean, sorry, was it Horikoshi? No, it's Nakaba. That Nakaba was making. Because there's no way he repeated that twice, and he knew that some people, well, most definitely everyone reading this would pick up. So, but then we go back to the castle where Batra is told the news that Meliodas will in fact marry Elizabeth at some point, and he will succeed the throne as king. And he's shaking with excitement, like, oh my god, this is quite a big decision you've made. And Meliodas is like, yeah, it's not really that deep. I just realized that I don't have to go back to the demon world. It's been a year, but I realized that I don't have to go back to the demon world, so I can take over for you once you're done. So Batra is he's very adamant. All right, yeah, you have to understand. There's a whole bunch of different duties. We have to sort out your coronation and stuff like that. And Meliodas, don't worry about the coronation. It's all good. Batra's like, what are you saying? It's your first duty as king. And Meliodas basically says is he palms off his duties as king. He's like, I understand that I have all these political duties. The need to appoint a new chief holy knight and stuff like that. Talking with royal families, keeping up the interrelations between those families. But what Meliodas says is, there's this little skit here, but it's not really all that funny. But all Meliodas basically tells him is, Elizabeth and I want to get married. We want to travel Britannia for a bit, and then I'll come back and assume my title as king and take over your duties as king. So Batra is like, all right, cool. Only once we get like a sparkly panel with Elizabeth, she's like, we want to visit all the places that we've been to over the last 3,000 years, everywhere where I've died over the last 3,000 years. And he's like, oh, okay, yeah, cool. That's all good. And his reason for his insistence was he wants to see his grandkids. We go back to Hawke, who's transported to Purgatory by Merlin, because apparently Merlin's like keeping a close ear and a close eye on Hawke. So Hawke actually gets transported to Purgatory, where he's being burnt, he's being frozen, he's experiencing difficulties breathing, he shits himself, and I was like, okay, like I don't understand why we're seeing this, because I knew where this was going. You know, he's gone there. We see him poop on the ground and stuff like that, and he's talking about, you know, my poor dead brother's body is here, you know, Wild, and then he bumps into this large boar who happens to just be Wild. So Wild isn't dead. Wild is completely fine. Well, Wild does make mention of the fact that his body is a complete wreck, but he also says it might only give him a million years of lifespan left, which is more than enough. So Hawke is now in Purgatory. He's gonna have to adapt, and he's chilling with his older brother, who is in fact not dead, even though he should be very dead, and that makes his whole sacrifice, and, you know, Ban and Meliodas singing to Hawke and stuff like that, which was actually a very emotional scene, even though they're pigs. That kind of makes all of that redundant. It takes away from the impact of Wild dying. So that chapter, I mean, like, it is what it is, right? It wasn't going to be an amazing chapter. It was just a wrap-up chapter, but it wasn't a very good one, in my opinion. I didn't particularly enjoy it. I thought it was just pretty run-of-the-mill. And especially for a series like Taizai wrapping up, I wanted to feel more, but I feel like the last year and a bit, maybe even longer than that, Taizai just hasn't been that great, so I wanted it to wrap up, and now that it is wrapping up, I don't like the wrap up. So maybe, you know, beggars can't be choosers here, right? So then we go into chapter 3, 4, 5, which is Heirs. You can kind of guess what this is about. So this is 18 months following the battle against the Demon Lord. So if last time around we were a year after the battle with the Demon Lord, then it's only really been 8 months since the last chapter, unless, of course, I've misinterpreted that, and the last chapter that year, it's been, when Meliodas says it's been a year since then, I might have misinterpreted that, and that might be a year since something else. So we start off with Slater, and I've forgotten the other dude's name, and they're in the middle, well, they've completed a mission of exterminating a worm and crushing some bandits and stuff like that. And Slater's teammate makes mention of, you know, I want to be challenged more than this. This is dog work, essentially. We're not doing anything all that good. Slater says, as long as I can serve his Royal Highness to the best of my abilities, I wish for nothing more. And his colleague makes mention of, you know, but which Royal Highness do you mean? Do you mean the current king, which I assume is Meliodas, or do you mean Batra? And Slater seems to get unusually pissed off here. He says, as far as I'm concerned, the only Royal Highness is Batra. And I was like, wait a sec. I thought you had a good relationship with Meliodas. Like, I understand he's a demon and everything, but you were one of the few people who seem to understand, you know, he's not cut from the same cloth as the rest of the demons. He doesn't have the same mindset as them, and neither does Elizabeth, for that matter. So his seemingly angry and kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? That kind of segregating opinion there of, you know, I'm never gonna think of Meliodas as king, seems to be a little bit weird, to say the least. We then go to Hauser, who now has a beard. The beard actually looks pretty cool, I think so, and he's training alongside Jericho and Gila. And he's doing a really good job holding them both off. He's probably training them up to become the next generation of, you know, diamond quality knights. And while they're training, this fairy lands on Hauser's head, and then he goes over to Jericho and tells Jericho about something about Ban and Elaine. So she dips from training and goes straight to the fairy forest to take care of something, and we'll find out later it's because Ban and Elaine are having a kid, and more than anyone, it's Elaine that's having the kid, more so than Ban. You get Aguila slightly hitting on Hauser, I think. I'm not too sure. We see Death Pierce and his crew. I think they were the Pleiades of the Azure Sky. Was that them, or was that Slater and his company? I think it might have been Slater, now I think about it. But Death Pierce essentially says, I'm returning to my hometown because I want to go rebuild and restore that part of the kingdom over in Edinburgh, Scotland, by the way. And his reason for leaving is, you know, we fought against, well, what's her name? Oh my god, Dedi Eddy She killed Denzel. We saw oh my god, I've forgotten his name. Reduciel. He's the one who brainwashed and manipulated all of us. So he has a thing against demons. He has a thing against goddesses. He's like, I have no obligation to serve under two of those kinds of people. I'm gonna go and build a country for humans and humans alone. So it already sounds like he's gonna be a piece for the future. So maybe Arthur and his little boys that we see later on, his Knights of the Round Table, maybe they will have to encounter Death Pierce and his boys. But seeing as Arthur can quite literally murder and juice and eat everyone in this entire series, I don't see how Death Pierce is going to pose any problems unless he finds a way to inject himself with demon / goddess blood and utilizes chaos somehow, some way. I don't see how he'd be an issue. I don't see how anybody would be an issue for Arthur at this point in time. We then go to Dreyfus and Hendrickson. We see that, you know, Dreyfus is lifting all these potions and stuff to outside where Hendrickson is. So they've both given up their titles of Chief Holy Knights. Or was it Great Holy Knight? I think that might have been the original one. But they've become something else. So Dreyfus is now the kingdom's most prized sword instructor. So his job is to train up and coming knights, and even knights who are probably within the, well, I'm not sure what the ranking was anymore, but the bronze to gold level, let's say. He's training them all up in swordplay, which is good. It's a rule that suits Dreyfus, seeing as he was actually very proficient in swordplay. So I like that. I think that's pretty cool. I like how they're moving on with their lives. And you have Hendrickson opening up a school for potions. And if I understood this correctly, he's also, because Dreyfus says, make sure that just don't get so absorbed in mixing your potions together that you neglect your patients. So it looks like Hendrickson is also serving as a doctor, essentially, like a general practitioner, helping out the locals and people around from any ailments, diseases, illnesses that they have, as well as being a school for potions and the alchemic arts, I suppose you could say. Anyway, they both kind of smile at the fact that, you know, they love this country, Lioness's future is bright and all that good shit. And then for some reason Dreyfus is like, okay, I'm leaving, and he just dashes away. We then go back to Batra, who's holding some toys for kids. You see what's his name, Gil Thunder. You see Griamore. They're holding toys for kids, suggesting that someone's about to have a baby. I'm not sure if you read into that, but yeah, Griamore, I'm just gonna say it one more time. His traps are so overdeveloped. Like, this guy, I mean, just judging by how developed they are, he looks like Yoel Romero, but that should be pulling his neck down, right? He shouldn't be hunching him over like that. I don't think that's how traps work, unless his chest is incredibly tight, and so are his anterior delts. But we'll not go into that. Anyway, everybody has these toys and stuff like that. So Batra's like, yeah, you know, don't rob an old man of his fun of getting his toys, apparently for a grandchild that's approaching. So he asks Gil Thunder and holy shit, what's her name? Gil Thunder and one of his eldest daughter, I've forgotten her name, what they're gonna do. They say that since we've been away for so long, we want to spend at least a little time alone together. And I'm just like, okay, but it's been like, what, 18 months? What have you been? Have you not been spending that time alone together? What have you been doing? You've been away? Where have you been? I'd like to know more about that, but we don't get that. Apparently they've just spent time away, and now they want to spend time alone together. So apparently they haven't been alone. We then get Veronica and Griamore, who say that they also want to spend a little more lovey-dovey time alone together. And I'm just like, okay, so Veronica seems to... Was Veronica always like this? I thought Veronica was meant to be tomboyish, but apparently not. I can't remember Veronica. I didn't really give two shits about Veronica, to be fair, after that first part where, you know, where the Sins were still fighting against humans. So Batra's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna keep looking for toys for my grandchild. And apparently he's gotten a knight and a horse because he knows, according to his vision, what gender the child will be, which is fairly straightforward. He knows it's going to be a boy. So then we go to the Fairy King's Forest, which is where where Ban and Elaine are. We see all these fairies perving in on Elaine while she's pregnant. And you have Gerhardt here, who's referred to as Gerard. I'm not sure why, but Gerhardt is just there like, why the hell are y'all spying on these guys? Like, I understand she's got a baby, and all you fairies are usually born from like the trees and grass and some shit. I'm not sure how you guys actually come out. Yeah, born from trees and flowers is what Elaine says. And I understand their interest. This is a novel thing, so I'm not gonna rip on the fact that they're looking. It's just a bit perverted, you know. Gerhard is there like, it'll be the first time a human and a fairy have conceived. This hasn't happened before. We've never had a fairy-s or a fairy that's been pregnant before. So I get that. She thinks back on Lo and her brother, and she's like, look at what a peaceful place the world has become. Until the next series, but we then see a pregnant Elaine, and then once again, I was just like, oh, whoa, that's not something I wanted to see today. I'm gonna have to bleach my eyes after this, but yes, she's pregnant, going through, you know, I think she's in late stages, and she's asking Ban like, are you thinking about the name of our baby? He's smiling like, yeah, I've already thought of one. I know of one. So then we go to Elizabeth and Meliodas, who are in the exact same situation. They're about to have a kid as well. Elizabeth looks heavily pregnant. Not quite as vomit-inducing as Elaine being pregnant, just because Elizabeth actually looks like not like a person who is of age to be pregnant, let's say. And anyway, we're told that Zeldris and Gelda are aware and actually came down to see Meliodas and Elizabeth. So that's good to know. Meliodas and Zeldris have kept their relationship up. The couples have kept their relationship intact, and they were both shocked at having heard of or having seen the evidence of a child that was about to be born between a goddess and a demon, which has never been heard of before, much like a fairy and a human. But then once again, you have to understand that Elizabeth is technically half human. I'm not sure how that really works, because genetically speaking, she wasn't born, right? She just appeared. I'm not sure if she was actually physically born from someone. So shouldn't she just be a goddess 100%? Apparently not. She's half human and half goddess. So and Meliodas is 100% demon. So we're gonna get a child which is 50% demon, 25% human, 25% goddess. That adds up. Yep. So that's going to be an interesting child, to say the least. Anyway, Meliodas is there thinking of the name. We see once again a heavily pregnant Elizabeth, and I wanted to see more of, you know, with pregnancy, women's bodies tend to change. I'm not the best in terms of knowing exactly how their bodies change, but I was expecting to see more weight in certain areas of Elizabeth, and she does seem to have a little bit of that, not as much as I was expecting. I was expecting more bodily changes, and with Elaine, I didn't even want to imagine that. But you know, this seems fine. Anyway, he claps his hands, Meliodas, and he's like, "All right, I've made up my mind. The child is going to be called Tristan," and Ban says his child will be called Lancelot. So, for those of you unaware of Arthurian legend, in Arthurian legend, or at least one strain of it, Meliodas has a child. Meliodas being the king of, I think, Lyonesse, even in the Arthurian legend. He has a child called Tristan. Tristan being a knight of the Round Table. A knight of the Round Table being Arthur's group of knights. Ban, in Arthurian legend, I've forgotten where he was king of. I think it begins with a C. He has a child whose name is Lancelot, or Galahad. That child is also a knight of the Round Table, a storied knight of the Round Table. Most of you will have heard of Lancelot. And what's her name? Guinevere? Is that it? Guinevere? I think so. He has a whole entire like epic dedicated to him, and I think Tristan might do too. But both of their children are knights of the Round Table, and Arthur is the king in Camelot. So I'm assuming we're gonna get more of that story developing. And that was pretty much about it. We get a last sate from Meliodas. He's watching some birds fly by, and that was it. So that was the better of the two chapters, you know, developing more of what's going to go down later on with Arthur and all that shit. I didn't like the initial part where we saw all the sins just dividing. I think if we'd flashed forward to this chapter and totally skipped last chapter, I would have been fine with that. I still don't know how the hell, you know, just because Merlin's like, yep, you're going to purgatory, Hawks was just like, yeah, I'm going to purgatory from afar. And he should have been very dead, considering his body had completely deacclimatized from purgatory, and then he was thrown into purgatory, and doesn't have he doesn't even have a tenth or a micro amount of the toughness or the durability of both Meliodas and Ban, who survived purgatory. They had to survive purgatory, and Hawk just turns up there like, yep, cool, I'm a shit myself, I'm burned a little bit, but it was a gag. And I'm just like, purgatory isn't a gag place. I understand this is the end of the series, and you can start to make more gags about shit like that, but don't cheapen the shit that's already happened. Don't cutesy up things. Purgatory is a place where people die, where people are going to get wrecked. So don't just throw Hawk in there and be like, yeah, he's calm, he can hack it. But then the second chapter was better. We have more of where this is going to go with Tristan, where this is going to go with Lancelot. I think Death Pierce might even be one of the major antagonists, possibly, even though I think he's a waste man, and he should, by all rights, get wrecked by anybody who decides to battle him. And I like how we have these little things set up where Dreyfus, he could probably train both Lancelot and Tristan in the art of the sword. We have Hendrickson, who could be more of a healer, but also he could teach them in the arts of alchemy, potions, all that type of stuff. And we're already getting an idea of some of the dissent within the kingdom, of people not liking the fact that Meliodas is king. Maybe they don't have too much of an issue with Elizabeth, which Death Pierce does have an issue with, but people like Slater, he seems to have more of an issue with Meliodas being king rather than Elizabeth being queen. So that was the end of those two chapters. Let me know what you guys thought of this review. Let me know what you guys thought of those chapters. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And even though this has been a longer review, it has been two chapters, so I'm pretty happy with that. Let me know what you guys thought, all that good stuff, and I will see you guys in a bit.